Hello, I'm Trey and welcome to another one of my colouring tutorials. I really do like fancy designs and I decided to attempt to do a dragon design from the Colour in Heaven Dragons in Nature special. The artwork is by Anastasia, Elly, Koldareva. I think that's how you pronounce it. These magazines also have a little bit about the artists inside, which I kind of like. So I'm going to be picking a design from this magazine, but I'm also going to show you how I choose a palette, a colour palette online. I have a site I like to use, so I'll show you that as well. For colour palettes online, there is a site I like to use called Design Seeds, and I'll include a link to this site in the details for this first part of this tutorial. I find it really nice and easy to use. I'm not looking for a really complicated site, so this is kind of nice. It allows you to follow or look for palettes in certain themes, and I tend to look for different things. Sometimes I'm looking for a colour. So, for instance, say I want to use a certain colour, say blue, for instance, I'll choose blue, and it will give me ideas that include blue in the palettes. Sometimes there's less colour options, sometimes there's more. There's another, you can explore by collection, and seasons is another one I like to look at. So for instance, if you wanted a spring season, you go into the spring section and it gives you spring colours, spring tones. So I kind of like this site. It's simple. I don't get loads of adverts on it. So I like this one. Now, I checked earlier on this site and I chose this colour palette called Mineral Glow. And I thought those colours there would look really nice with the design I've chosen. Now, I'm going to be using more than one set of pencils today on this tutorial. I'm going to be using Marco Renoir, and these pencils are a oil-based artist grade pencil. And I'm also going to use a new set of pencils I got recently called Castle Art Supplies, their soft series premium range. And I would say these are a higher end student grade pencil. These are wax based. So the reason I did that was because with these tones, I couldn't get all the tones very closely with just one set of pencils. And I often mix up pencils with my projects. So these are the first colours I got out for this. They're the first colours I chose. Some of them are from the Castle Art pencils and some from Marco Renoir pencils. So obviously that's not a lot of pencils, so I do expand on what I get out originally to have a darker and lighter for each colour. Now I've decided to do this design, and again with the last tutorial, well, the last two tutorials, I will be doing it in stages, otherwise it's going to make for a long viewing. Because I'm using quite a few pencils and also two different brands, as always I write down the name of the pencil for this project, the numbers, because both the pencils have numbers on them, which section the colours are in as well, so that I can come back to this at any time and pick the right colours that I've started with. Now when I looked at this design, there's quite a few different elements, and I decided to do the dragon first. The lovely dragon is gone. this is the head and he's sweeping right behind the tree house. Comes on the other side of the tree house. Tail comes down here and he does these lovely fronds, almost leaf design, coming off the body. So I really like this art, it's so pretty. I've decided to do my dragon in purples. Now these pencils I'm using for the purples are the Castle Art. I've only used them once so far, so this is still a learning curve for me with these pencils. So as with all my projects, when I'm doing the tutorials even, anything could go wrong. You know, I'm working it out as I go along. So I'm going to do the body of the dragon in the purples, but I'll probably do the fronds and these other markings in a different shade. As always, I tend to start with my lightest. I'm going to put in when I think my highlights are for this, the body of the dragon. When it comes to light source for this, I'm going to think of the light coming from the top. So the light's going to catch the top of the dragon that way. It just makes it a little bit easier when doing a light source. I'm just doing light pressure, so you may not see the colour very well on camera. But of course you build it up as you're going along. I'm going to be doing those in a different colour, so I'll miss those out. Same with that, that's part of the fronds. Now go on to the body. Quite complex designs these, so they take a little bit of thinking about. But that's good, I enjoy that focus. I feel that I'll probably have to adjust this because this plant here will actually cast a shadow over the areas I'm putting as highlights. But that's okay, because I'm doing a light pressure, I can adjust that. Right, there's a claw here, so I'm going to put the highlights on the top of the toes. And the body comes around the tree house, so we're here. Right, that's a light layer. I'm now going to go back over here and to the head and start doing the next darkest colour. And I'll just check which one that is. Right. The purples in this set are kind of similar to each other when you get darker, but it'll work out. I can always use a black if I need to with the purple. I'm now going to add in a little bit of shadow at the bottom of the head. Again, light pressure. Using these pencils, and as I mentioned before, I haven't used them much. This is only the second time. They're not as soft as the Marco refined pencils, but they're quite nice. I do like the vibrancy of the colours, mind. That's really nice. Now for this bit here, I've decided to put some more light in there to highlight that cheek and above the eye again. In the shadow, like you would do a face for a person coming in from the edges. Now with this part of the head, I'm going to leave the top part in highlight. I think that will work best. And just bring the shadow up from the bottom. It might work best for those sections. Now with this one, that's on the inside. And the light's coming from above, so the lighter sections are going to be on the opposite, in some ways, a part of it. It's just my interpretation when I think the shadows are going to be, and hopefully, you know, it'll help others to work it out as well, and they'll do, you know, you'll do your own interpretation of this design. The light and the darker sections will overlap eventually. I'm going to go around the head, dark on both sides, shadow, so that it gives it a rounded effect. Okay, so that's the head with the shading. Now I'm going to go to the rest of the body that goes around the back of the tree. And I'm going to put shading on both sides because I want to try to create a rounded beveled effect. Of course, there's going to be more shadow inside here because the plant is going to cause that. I tend to be quite careful with my darker sections at first because I know I can always add to it, but I can't take it away. So I tend to have more light than I actually need at first until I'm comfortable with where my shadows are going to be. I can overlap the light sections. Now we're going to pick up the body on the other side of the tree. Right, that's a medium purple. I'm now going to go in with the darker shade of purple. I'm not quite sure it's going to be dark enough, but we'll see. I'll see how that works out. Just realised I'd forgotten about the claw. Medium purple. And yes, it looks a bit rough, this first layer. I tend to do that. I'm not too careful. I know I can go over the layers because I'm only going on light, just to give me an idea where I feel my light and dark areas will be. So with this darker shade of purple, it's almost like I'm just outlining the edges. Now go to the other side of the dragon and come behind the tree. Do the same again. It's just almost like you're highlighting the edges where the darker sections are. I've done some colouring tutorials for through a charity, I help manage, which is why these are actually on the charity site. And I'm working with people with learning disabilities and difficulties, breaking down the colouring and how you do your layers is a really good way to help see where you are and how you work things out. I'm sure that this kind of technique of working out your projects would be helpful to others, which is why I decided to do these tutorials. Right, well, now I'm happy with where I feel the light and dark sections will be. Obviously, I'll need a few more layers on that, which you don't need to watch, so I'll do that off camera. Maybe do 2 or 3 more layers for each section. Now I've done 3 layers on there, and also in those colours, and also I use my blender pencil. And again, I didn't feel I needed to do that on camera. Um, I've had to tilt my work slightly towards me. I always colour my work tilted towards me. I have stands to do that. I find it eases my back, and I'm not leaning over quite so much. It's not as tilted as I normally would have it, but obviously I can't record with it so tilted. Now, I'm going to go over some of these layers again. Now, I'm using these pencils for only the second time, and I'm finding that they're starting to struggle with the layers, and I've only put 3 layers down of each. It's the only thing I could say that is negative about these pencils, because the colours are beautiful. They blend reasonably well as pencils, but they start to struggle with the layers. And I'm not heavy with my colour, and I tend to be quite light pressure wise. This paper I'm using in the magazine has a slight tooth on it, so it's not too smooth. So it's not the paper, because I've used other pencils with this paper and it works fine. So for some reason these pencils are a little bit waxy, and I'm struggling to get more layers down. I'm not somebody that does a lot of layers, but obviously I would like to be able to do more than 3. Otherwise, you're not going to get a very good coverage on the paper. If you were heavy-handed with these pencils, I think you would struggle. And that's the Castle Art soft premium pencils I'm talking about here. Just darkening in, see if I can get away with 1 more layer with this, because I'm struggling. I'm going to put another layer of the dark purple down. I think the dark purple is dark enough for me. Just move it across here a little bit, and then I'll move it back. I don't feel the need to go with a black. I think it'd be too harsh for this dragon design. I want to keep it subtle, so the shading isn't going to be as dark as what I would normally do. Now I will do the last layer of my light colour. I'm going to put a little bit of a medium pressure on this and see if I can blend it in a bit better, smooth out some of these patchy areas. I might struggle because the pencils are now sliding off this paper. I'm doing my best. Every set of pencils I have works differently. Obviously, it's down to the manufacturers, the combination of wax and clay, the lead that they use in each pencil. And it's a shame, really, when you get lovely pencils in some ways, then you end up with struggling to get any more down. I think it's the wax that does that, but I'm not 100% sure. The colour saturation with these pencils is lovely though, and I think they'd be really good for areas you wanted to highlight or make stand out without, it doesn't need too many layers. So I think these are going to be really good for those kind of areas, because the colours are lovely. Right, I've done the last layer for the purple for the dragon. Yes, I think these pencils are going to be slightly difficult to use. I can actually see the wax bloom on those. It's only 4 layers. Just finish off the claw. There's only 4 layers, and I struggled to get the 4th layer down. I mean, fair enough, I was using medium pressure for the 4th layer to try and smooth out the layers and blend it a bit better between the purples. But yeah, I feel that you should have been able to do a little bit more layers with these pencils, despite them being student grade. Other than that, they're lovely pencils. They sharpen really well. The colour is lovely, and they're kind of soft. So maybe if they get enough feedback on that, they'll look at the manufacturing. Now I'm going to pick a colour for the fronds to come off. It comes off the body and the head of the dragon. I decided to go with the peach and brown colours for the fronds on the dragon, and I think as well I'll put that for the colour of the eye and the beak and the claws. I think it'd be a nice complementary shade. Do the middle of those in the peach. It's going to look nice and subtle, this dragon, and I think it will work in nicely for this design because it's such a delicate design. Really pretty. I'm using the Renoir pencils now, and these pencils, I do know I have to have a light touch with these because they can build, they have quite a lot of pigment in them, so they can build up quite quickly. Some of these fronds here have actually got flowers on them. I'm not quite sure. So I'm going to leave some of those green so I can do the flowers in like a peachy colour. Again, it's a design. It's like everything else with complicated, complex design. You just work it out as you go along. Sometimes I'll have an idea and then decide as I'm colouring it doesn't work, and I'll change my original thoughts. Let's see those. These Renoir pencils, they don't tend to keep a point very long with them being very soft. So when I'm doing thin sections like this, I find it quite hard. And that hasn't got a flower on, so I'll make that peach. Now move over to this section. I guess it's a little bit complicated on this section because there's flowers all mixed up with the fronds on the dragon. So I'm going to anything that hasn't got flowers on, I'm going to assume that that's fronds of the dragon. You can't actually see where it connects to the body. That has no flowers on, so I'll do that there. That'll work out okay. These are leaf type patterns. The artist has combined the dragon in all the dragons in this book with foliage and nature, which is really nice. Of course, you've got to work that out if you're going along which part's what. And this one, this design, it's mixed up quite a bit with the foliage around the tree house. Well, I think I've got all the peach section started. Obviously, as I'm going along, I might change my mind and see sections that should have been that way, but I'll just work on that as it goes along. So the second colour I wanted to use with the peach is a browny colour. I'm going to do almost like a gradient effect. I'm going to do a gradient effect around the lighter section. These two colours are quite often used for skin tones when I'm doing faces with these pencils. And the fronds, I'm going to do the edges, the ends, darker, and that'll gradient out to the lighter ends. Turn it around so I can see. There's a section there and I've realised that should have been purple. So I'll fill that in later. This side now. Right, now this part here I felt we're going to the plant, so I'm going to leave that to go into green rather than do it the peach. Now I'm going to use the brown, which is the darkest colour I decided to work with for this peach, and I'm going to be doing the edges so it goes, that's how I'm going to create that gradient effect in areas. Again, just a rough first layer, I'll do all those brown. And I'll do those brown as well. They'll stand out a wee bit more. Sometimes areas are just too small, I feel, for doing too much shading. Right, that is a light first layer for the peach and brown sections. And I will now do some more layers and come back to this. I've done 2 more layers of the darker colours of the browns rather than the peach. I haven't done the last layer of the peach yet because I've decided to use the peach to blend the other layers, so I'm going over all of the brown. Now these pencils, they're kind of very soft and a bit crumbly, so I tend to have to be careful with my pressure on them. And also I find I have to sharpen them a lot. I mean, I do turn my pencil, to help with that, keep the point, but they are very soft, so if I use anything more than a light pressure, they just disappear. So I'm going to go over all of the brown to make it more of a dark peachy colour. It warms it up a little bit. I won't go over the very dark brown sections, just the medium brown. It gives it a nice subtle effect. I'll do a final blend on that, but that'll be about okay now. And as you can see by that pencil, it goes down really, really quickly. So I tend to find I have to sharpen these. And also, when you've got a thin part, they're very, very difficult to use on delicate sections. So they're okay for larger areas, but delicate sections not so much. Right, I'm going to do a blend that you don't, really don't need to sit and watch. So this is the end of part 1 of this tutorial to colour in a dragon from this issue of Colour and Evan. And I'm really liking how that dragon has turned out. It's very subtle. The peaches and browns go in so nicely with the purples. So I'll work out what I'm going to do for the next part of this tutorial. And I hope you've enjoyed it, found it useful, and I'll see you next time.